This is Jack Moelmann once again in our series of interviewing famous theater organists, and we're taking this opportunity to meet with a great name in the theater organ world. Her name is Donna Parker, and she's one of the few female organists that are around, and so we're glad to have her. Today is the 27th of March 2011. We're in Belleville, Illinois, which is near St. Louis, and she was part of a trio called the Trio Cambrio, which did a concert this afternoon over here at the Lincoln Theater, which is just across the street from where we are right now. And so this gives us an opportunity to talk to Donna a little bit. And welcome, Donna.
Thank you.
And why don't you just tell us, oh, she's from Portland, Oregon also, because we just did one of these with another member of your trio, and that was Jonas Nordwall.
Right.
And I didn't get to where he was from until halfway through it, but he talked all about Portland. Anyway, how did you get started in the music world?
Let's see. Well, my parents tell me that when I was about 2 years old, and I was speaking some words, but certainly couldn't express everything exactly, but they would play a lot of music in the house, all kinds of music, from classics to pop to country, everything. And I always was just absolutely totally involved and jumping up and down, and and when I could express myself, I would always ask them if I could play the two-story piano. And they have no idea where that came from. I knew that it was two keyboards, I didn't know it was called an organ, but that's what I expressed from about 2.5 on. So when I finally saw a picture of it, I just said that's the two-story piano. And so they went to the Hammond organ dealer, because Hammond organs were so popular when I was a kid, and they said, oh no, we can't teach a child until they're 7 years old. And so I was totally devastated. But I would play pianos or any keyboard that I could find. My grandparents had a piano, so I would play that by ear. But when I was 7, my parents went down and bought a Hammond organ, an A100, and I started lessons. And my mom, of course, took the 10 free lessons, and I was taking along with her. And then finally she said, I think you need to take the lessons. So started there. I mean, that's where it began. So,
And you've been doing this
oh gosh,
ever since.
ever since.
And you've been in the classical performance, popular performance, theater,
Yes.
piano.
All kinds of facets.
Do you play any other instruments?
I played trumpet in college. I actually played in high school and in college. In college we had to also take stringed instruments, and I got stuck with the violin, and I say it that way because I don't know. I can't bend my wrist like you're supposed to, or whatever. Who knows? But it was awful. And I had a professor that had just come over from Russia, was going to Cal Poly, Pomona, and so he asked that we play Mary Had a Little Lamb, which seemed simple enough, but it wasn't. And it was just, to me, it was always out of tune. It wasn't quite right. I love violin music, but I'm not a violinist. So I went in and
my sister drove us crazy with
Well,
Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
yeah, I think my parents were really tolerant, but I went in to play, and I remember he had kind of longer hair, and he grabbed his hair and said, "Get out." And this was my final, and I said, "Look, I have to pass this class. I'm a music major, this is not," and he said, "I will pass you, just get out." So that was my violin career, very short-lived.
Then you spent some time with the Rogers Organ Company.
I did.
Now, was that as a performer, as a technical advisor? What?
I actually started with Con Organ Company as a product specialist. That was the first thing I did when I was 15. And I was born and raised in the LA area, Los Angeles. So they were looking for a young person to play at Dodger Stadium for the baseball games. And George Wright knew me and actually suggested to them to hire me. So they came for an interview from Chicago, Dale Zeger and Bob Zadell and all those people, Richard Rogers. And that's what happens. I went out to Dodger Stadium and was the organist. They had a big Con 650 at the time in their new sound system, and it was a lot of fun. So, and then going around after that, I would go around to the different con organ dealers in Southern California and demonstrate the product, and it was, of course, as the Dodger organist. So that's what started. And then, yes, I totally went into pipe organ for a long time, both classical and theater organ. And then at the suggestion of Tom Hazelton and Jonas Nordwall, we were living back in the Midwest, and they asked if I would come out to Rogers because they wanted someone that would work in marketing, would work with all of the dealerships and just in all things marketing. I mean, advertising and everything. So it was quite an experience. I did do that for 8 years, and eventually ended up being the marketing manager at Rogers. It wasn't as an artist. I mean, we played from time to time, but it was really in marketing management. So it's very interesting,
I don't want to pursue this too much, but there aren't too many female organists.
No, and that's
Is there some reason for that, or?
I don't know. In the church world, I think there are probably more female church organists than there are males. But I don't know, because when I grew up, gosh, there was certainly, of course, Rosario, but there was Rose Diamond, there was, all these women, Ann Leaf, Helen Dell, Carol Jones, all these people that I grew up around. There were lots of women playing. So, I don't know.
Is there any stigma to it that, because of the instrument, it should be a man's instrument? Or, you think of a harp, somebody playing the harp. It's mainly ladies that play the harp, and men that play tubas. And is there anything to that, without pursuing this too much?
No, and it's always an interesting conversation, but I think that, and I've talked with women, but I've talked with the guys about this too. I've taught many students in my lifetime, and there are many men that will come in very timidly and play. And I think it has more to do with a personality or an approach. I really don't think it's man versus a woman, because an organ, maybe unlike piano, can be powerful. It can be, although there are certainly some wonderful, female pianists, but I don't think so. I think it is more about your attitude and your approach and your personality and, how that plays out. I don't think women are, timid players and the men are the powerful players, because they're both on both sides.
And you've been a pizza parlor organist.
Oh, yeah. So I'd never done that until, 1975, I guess it was. And Lynn Larson had gone from Southern California. I'd been studying with him. He moved over to Phoenix to play for Bill Brown at Organist Stop in Phoenix. And he kept saying, you need to come over. And I thought, I didn't know what to do, because they played crash cymbals and xylophones and things. And I wasn't used to that. I had no idea. So when I went over, I finally, went over there. Of course, I was engaged at the time to Bob McNure, who was one of Bill's managers. So I remember Lynn saying, honey, hit that crash cymbal and and it was just unnerving as all get out. I said, well, we don't do that in concert, which we didn't. And he said, well, you aren't playing concert, you're playing for the general public and you're playing pizza, so let's go. And, it was a whole different style, but I really liked it. I really liked making, all those people happy. It was real fun.
What was the most exciting concert you've ever done in terms of both the performance and the instrument? Something that you remember as the highlight of your career?
Wow. Boy. Honestly, there are so many different ones for so many different reasons, but, one that would stick out is the first concert we did at the holiday time at Paramount Music Palace in Indianapolis, when we finally, the organist settled in, and Bill Vlasek, who was the other organist there at the time, we got to actually play it for a concert rather than just for pizza night. It was a wonderful instrument. And family was there. That's, I guess, maybe it's even a looking back. My dad was still alive, so he was there, both my mom and dad. And yeah, it was just kind of deep breath, we've done it, here it is, everything's going well, and that was a fun concert.
Let's try the other side of it. What do you think was the most challenging or the biggest disaster that you wish had never occurred? There might be several of those too.
Well, I can think of one in particular, but I'll tell you about the most challenging. That'll be a nicer story. I was getting ready to go to Australia for the first time. It was in '87. We were living in Indianapolis, and it was happening in April. And I got a phone call 3 a.m. and this gentleman kept saying that he was calling from Austria. And of course, in my haze of waking up out of a sound sleep, I said, you mean Australia? No, Austria. And I had no idea, Obviously, it was from a different time zone at 3 a.m. So he kept going on in very broken English, but he wanted me to play a concert, a theatre concert. And I thought, a theatre concert? I had no idea what he was talking about. And finally he said, theatre. Gershwin, Berlin, Oklahoma. And I said, oh, theater. And he said, yes, theater. Okay, so theater. So he wanted a theater concert. And I said, all right. He couldn't really tell me about the organ. And so I asked all my friends, what is this, that would know, that had been to Europe. And they said, oh, it's probably the organ that backs up typically the Vienna Boy Choir. And it's kind of an orchestral organ, and it's got a chrysoglot, and it's got this and that. So you would be able to do, theater things. Okay, great. So we flew over, we received a contract all in Austrian, so I took it to the high school, to the German teacher. I'd had 4 years of German, but it didn't do a bit of good for a legal contract. So he read it and said, yes, this is the date, this is, what they want. So we signed it. It was with the ORF, which is, one of their major broadcasting companies like ABC or CBS or NBC here. And so we flew over in February of 1987. And it was just a big adventure because I'd never been to Europe, and Vienna was a dream to go to. And I'm just guessing as to what that organ's going to be like. And it was for Orgeltag, or Organ Day. And all these classical concerts except me, and it was at dinner hour, which I really liked that, 5 o'clock. And so I went to the hotel, got instructions to go to the ORF, walked in, and it was like 100 and some rank Schuke. And it was the most classical, straight classical organ you could possibly imagine. It even had a roll pedal instead of regular, I was like, oh Lord, help me, help me. So I verified again, they really did want theater organ music on this very classical organ. So it was just like wipe the slate clean, listen to the sounds, put something together. Did La Danza, did Take 5, did, different things. And had an interpreter, and I just thought, well, it's either going to go well or you're going to get stoned out of the city, one or the other. And they told me in the beginning, they said, don't be offended if not very many people show up for the concert. That's fine, that's fine. And so it came the dinner hour for this concert, and the studio filled up, their sub-studios filled up, and the streets were full. We laughed and said it was like the Beatles. But we couldn't figure out what it was, and we found out later, all of those people, and they were, the pensioners, they remembered the 3 theater organs that they'd had in Vienna. And so while it wasn't a theater organ, they knew that there was going to be theater organ music. And so they came to hear it. And it was just absolutely the most touching thing. It was the most, frightening thing, because I didn't know how in the world this was going to come off on a Schuke. But yet it was just absolutely fantastic to, get their support and their, reactions. So that was probably the most challenging. I mean, truly, when you're not even in your own country, you can't even talk your way out of anything. You're just hoping for the best. So,
well, looking ahead, where is it that you would really like to play that you haven't, both in terms of the instrument and the venue? I mean, what's out there that you it's your ultimate goal to go seek out one way or another?
Well,
maybe you've played them all.
I honestly have played a lot of them, most of them. There's some that I haven't, but I think what I'm looking forward to is, we've had a lot of input with Bob McNewer's new studio that he's putting together, because it's basically, what do you want? What would you like on this organ? And while we've certainly had good input on a lot of the pizza parlors that we've done, like Roaring Twenties in Grand Rapids, Michigan, or Paramount Music Palace in Indianapolis, this is really just basically what do you want? And Bob's planning to have 3 consoles so that Trio Cabrillo can practice together, but we can also, have a real kicking instrument. So it doesn't exist yet, but that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I really want to do. And I really would like to do another pizza parlor. Lots of new ideas. I mean, I'm not talking about doing a warmed over idea of what's been done, but yeah, they aren't there yet, Jack. So.
Very good. In sort of concluding this, not knowing exactly who the audience of this particular video would be, could be young people, middle-aged, old. What would you sort of give as a little pep talk finale to what we've done here today?
About theater organs?
Yes, or any organ or music in general.
But, well, it hasn't changed. I mean, it's no different today than the day that I first heard, a theater organ, and that was at the Wiltern Theater in Los Angeles. I mean, I know you've been there many times, but that was, the very first one I heard was a small instrument, and I remember the thrill. I mean, truly, it was just a thrill, because it's an acoustic instrument. As I always tell people, it's like the marching band going by when you're sitting on the curb, and it goes right through your chest. I mean, you feel the music. And that's the way I felt when I first heard the Little Wurlitzer. And boy, when I went down to the Wiltern and heard Tom Hazelton play, the very first concert I ever heard for ATOE in those days, I turned around with absolutely every bit of enthusiasm to my dad and said, "Daddy, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be a theater organist." And, I had no idea what I was even saying, except that I loved that means of expression. People, it was, as you know, in those days, there were full houses. And that's exciting when you have that many people kind of pulling in the same direction. No different than when my own daughter sat at Organist Donna Pizza in Mesa a few years ago, 700 people sitting in the house, and Charlie or Lou, I don't know which, started playing Sound of Music. And, that's kind of, kids might think that's kind of square, but 700 people started singing all the songs in the Sound of Music. And she said later, well, I guess I was playing, because she said, when I came down from break, she said, "Mom, this is going to sound really stupid, but I literally had tears in my eyes." And this was a 20-something-year-old, So I had tears. It was so moving to see grandmas and grandpas, but little kids and moms and everybody of every age. So it's no different today. Theater organ is the most versatile instrument. It can do anything. It really can. It's like having paints in the color of an artist. I mean, in the hands of an artist. Those colors, you create that painting, and like I said. I mean, it was that way back in the '60s when I first heard it, and it's the same way today in 2011. I mean, the kids that are introduced to it, just like one of the young men here in St. Louis, a couple of years ago. What is this thing? And he's built a virtual organ and is playing, so it's just a great means of expression.
Well,
It's got a future.
We want, this is very good, Donna Parker. We want to thank you for taking time out in what's been a busy couple days.
Thanks, Jack.
And appreciate your comments. And just a reminder, this is March 27th, 2011, here in Belleville, Illinois, near St. Louis. And we wish you well in your future projects and endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack.